Hey there, friends. I'm Gus,
I'm Cable.
and this is the podcast Sequels Suck, the only podcast dedicated to all things prequels, sequels, and remakes, pretty much everything except the first one. And we have got new episodes coming out all the time of all of your favorite sequels, prequels, remakes, and everything that's not the first one. So make sure you go ahead and hit like and subscribe so that you can find out when all the new episodes are coming out straight away. And then you can get on and tell us exactly what we got wrong or what we got right or what you want us to talk about next. We'll be seeing you soon on Sequel Suck.
By definition alone, they're inferior films. Films. Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Films.
Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequel Suck, where we deal with reboots, remakes, and of course sequels. And today we're going back to the franchise we spoke a lot about last year and the year before, and we never got to it. And it's one of those films that I think people do like. It's Halloween H20. Angus,
Hello.
you look like you're ready. You've been in the trenches and you're ready to talk Halloween.
Yeah, look, for some context for anyone who's watching rather than listening, I realized as I turned my camera on for this recording, my face is covered in face paint because my daughter painted my face earlier on today, and then I just straight up forgot that happened. And it's going to take too long to wash off. So it's a very bright, flowery, colorful look I've got for a slasher movie, but it's kind of a bright, colorful slasher in a way, so it's appropriate. You know what? The face paint represents how I feel on the inside that we get to talk about this movie finally. It's an outward manifestation of my internal joy that I'm feeling today about finally getting. It feels like it's been 20 years since we talked about the first
Yeah, I know.
first round of Halloween movies, so I'm so glad that we're here.
I feel like the Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, has been a long time ago. To the point,
I know, and that's a yucky taste to have in your mouth as the last Halloween movie you talk about.
But if you're watching online, you can probably see there's another window open, and it's a good friend of mine, Christian, who has just done a documentary, which I'll let him quickly speak about. And obviously, he's a massive Halloween, I would say, nut. Probably needs to be in a asylum somewhere with Michael Myers, possibly. But Christian, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey, how are you guys? They let me out of Smith's Grove for a few hours,
Yeah.
so I thought I'd come say hi.
Great. Do you want to quickly tell us?
So lax.
So people that may have seen on my Instagram and the Sequel Suck Instagram that recently I've done a bit of Michael Myers dressing up, but it's actually been for a very good reason. So you were doing your little. I'll let you talk about it quickly.
Yes, Cable, I think you're underselling yourself. You were quite the performer in a now 90-minute long video essay documenting my very rocky relationship with the 2022 Halloween Ends sequel, where I just about lost my mind going 2 years later. Yeah.
I was going to say, when we do Halloween Ends on this podcast, sorry, I'm reading ice. When we did this podcast, I think it was it was one of those ones that it was very jarring of a film, let's just say. And I think, did we come around on it, Angus, by the end of the podcast, where we sort of?
To be honest, I was there at the start. Really,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where it's got to hit you or it doesn't. I saw it twice in the cinemas, and both times I was with groups of people, and I walked out, and every single one of the people in the group were like, "What just happened?" And I was like, "Wasn't that fun?" And I really was like, I recognize that I'm in the minority of a lot of Halloween fans, but it's an interesting essay. I only found out it existed just before we went to record, so I'm about 90% of the way through. I haven't seen the conclusion yet, Christian. But for people who are fans of the Halloween series and who have strong emotions about the Halloween franchise in general, or just movies, which any listeners of this show know that Cable and me particularly, have some pretty strong opinions about films sometimes and what they should have done differently. That's my favorite thing. They should really check it out. So it's called, correct me if I'm wrong, How I Tried and Failed to Fix Halloween Ends. Is that the title?
Very close. Yeah, it's trying and failing to fix Halloween Ends.
Trying and Failing to Fix Halloween Ends. And what's the channel that they can listen to it or watch it on?
You can view it on YouTube at Production Journal.
Yeah, and I recommend you check it out. It really will. Look, it'll either make you feel a lot better at your rage, or it'll enrage you because you're like, no, I like this one. But either way, you'll have a good time.
Well, just to let you know, and I don't know if she was just skimming, but the quality, the high quality of what Christian put together was so good that Michelle from this podcast said she skimmed through or sorry, I won't say she skimmed through, but she did not know who I was in the film. Like, she didn't pick it, so
It took me a minute.
Wow.
yeah.
And I know I've seen I've seen many times the mask and all the stuff and the glove and everything you've got to recreate that character from Kills. And it took me a minute when it popped in, and I was like, okay, cool. And then it's probably only because I knew you were in it and you were the one who's like, hey, I was in this, and sent me the link, that I was like, oh, that's Cable. Otherwise, I would have gone right by me. It looks fantastic. And it is definitely one of the more compelling Halloween films to talk about. I feel like though H2O is up there, at least personally, in the rankings of Halloween films that we want to talk about. Something I'm always curious about is how we came
Yep.
to this movie. So Christian, when did you first discover Halloween H2O?
Okay, I think it was about now going on 2 years. For the first time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to make my way through the Halloween movies. That was when the mental illness all started. And over the course of about a week and a half, I went through all of them. They sucked me in for better or worse. And H2O was such a strange one because I had seen the first and second Friday the 13th, so I was very familiar with Steve Miner's work in part two, and obviously how this kind of is a riff on Scream, and I found it a very interesting place to take the Halloween series.
Excellent. When you say you were going through it, so the very first time you saw it was 2 years ago?
Yes.
Wow. And you were watching them chronologically.
Yes, yeah.
Excellent. That's a fun way to
Yeah.
experience H2, I think. What about you, Cable? When did you first come across it?
Yeah, so it's weird because number 6 wasn't that far. That wasn't that far before.
People forget.
Yeah,
It
no,
was a
but
short gap.
yeah, but it's so weird because I still remember 6 being on the video shelf, but it just felt like there was such a gap between Paul Rudd doing that and then this one coming out on the back of the success of Scream. And the fact that Kevin Williamson was everywhere, and that was the thing, and obviously Scream's heavily influenced by Halloween. But it was weird. It was this very, almost this new thing, like as if we hadn't seen the movie for 20 years. Like, it was kind of like, okay, I think it did, when it was coming out, it was a big deal because Jamie Lee Curtis was obviously back. But, obviously they tied into the whole Miramax were involved. And Kevin Williamson was involved in at least writing, executive producing. So, there was that link to Scream. Oh, this is the next big thing from, Scream. But it did feel like this was, I wouldn't say big budget, but it was like this massive, they definitely really sold this film in the lead up. I remember the posters being everywhere. The stuff, bus shelters on the sides of buses and stuff like that. I remember it being a big deal compared to the last few Halloween films before it.
Yeah, it was a big one. It was certainly the first one I was aware of as being like a big deal movie. I've been racking my brain since we first decided to put this one on the slate, and I can't honestly remember if I knew about Halloween. I think I knew about Halloween through Scream. And I remember watching Scream, especially when it came to VHS, and watching and be like, what the hell is Randy watching? What are they talking? And that kind of propelled me to want to find out what these movies were. But I don't know if I'd actually seen a Halloween movie before I started seeing the advertisements for H2O. What I do remember quite vividly is when it was being promoted here in Australia, it was absolutely everywhere. And for any international listeners, there is a very popular morning show called The Today Show that they have. And we had a Hollywood correspondent, as he likes to call himself, Richard Wilkins, who was sort of our guide to the stars in the 90s. And I remember vividly they had the media package of him talking about this new Halloween H2O is coming out, and him saying over and over and over again, Michael Myers is back. We're so excited. Michael Myers is back. And I remember sitting there in like 1997, late 97, 98, looking at my TV and going, why the fuck is Austin Powers in a horror movie? What the fuck is happening? And I'm looking, I'm like, is Mike Myers walking around in a fucking mask in this movie? What the fuck? And that was the first thing that made me go, well, I got to see this. This is going to be amazing. This is going to be so good. And then my mum was like, no, oh no, shut up, you idiot. No. This is a guy from horror films from a long time ago. And because of the promo and because of my disconnect a bit, it wasn't until maybe 10 years after the movie came out, I clicked. It had only been like 2 or 3 years since Halloween 6 came out because the marketing was so good to be like, nah, don't forget all those. Don't worry about any of that nonsense. 3, 4, 5, 6, you don't need them. Shut up. And it went away. And this movie came out, and I think it appealed to my generation specifically. I don't know how old you are, Christian, exactly, but like in 1998, I was in year 9. It was Dawson's Creek was a big deal. Scream was a big deal. Kevin Williamson was a big deal. Michelle Williams, was she a big deal in my life? So it hit all these sweets. Joshua Jackson, not Joshua Jackson, sorry, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he was Third Rock from the Sun, baby. I friggin' love that show. Like it hit everything I needed to. For me, Jamie Lee Curtis was actually the least exciting thing about the movie in 1998 because I kind of didn't have that much of a relationship with her, but everything else around it made this like my Halloween movie. This was the one that really like hooked me. And in history, I think has become like probably up to a Scream in terms of the most important horror movies in what they led to. I'm not saying they're the best or the greatest, but in terms of gateway drugs for horror movies, this one really was like, hey, go and check out the last literal 20 years of slasher history. And so I think that's something that's really good about H2O for a lot of people is it did get people to turn around and go, oh shit, look what came before. This is pretty incredible. So all that being said, let's dig into what this actual film is like and how we feel about it as a whole, especially now we are removed from that youthful bliss that we had. And also we've gone through yet another 2 cycles of Michael Myers kind of starting again and forgetting the other movie. So Christian, I guess the first things first, how do you feel about H2O as a movie?
Yeah, very different movie. There's a couple standouts that whenever I'm thinking about this film, I always love that. Yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in it. He eats an ice skate. I think that's amazing.
So good.
It's so good. Such a cool kill. Michael Myers does an insane chin up at like the halfway point of the movie. I think that's brilliant. One arm chin up, by the way, insane.
Chin up or chin
get that
down?
Man.
He like descends.
I don't know. Get that man on an NBA court. All right, he's wasted here in Haddonfield.
I'm glad
it's not in Haddonfield.
Sorry to interrupt, Christian, but I love that you brought that up because that was the one thing. I think it's cool, but it makes no logical sense because for him to actually even be up there and her to walk past and not even see, like it's like if you think about the geography or the layout of the building and where he's coming down from, there's no way she could not have not seen some legs dangling down or something like that.
I think there's a reverse shot that we see at some point where there's not actually enough room.
Yes.
For him to be up the pipe and conceal his body. So he would just be like, his head would be above the pipe and then his whole lower torso would just be exposed to the hallway. But I don't care.
Yeah. Look, maybe that's for the better. He has a very uncanny CGI mask at times, which I think has kind of aged the film in a certain way.
Yeah, well, now that you brought that up, I'm going to just jump in right now.
I mean, this is a big one on my list, but let's do it.
And you talked about Michael Myers. Well, this was as bad as, but you might as well have had Michael Myers in the mask because as a mask fan, look, there's been some average masks. We say, I think everyone can agree Halloween 4 is one of the worst ones. Oof. But this is up there. It is a terrible mask. I've never liked it, and to me, it's always kind of taken me out of the film a bit. It's been a real big negative for me. But also the fact that the mask slightly changes a couple of times, and like Christian just said, there's a part where they obviously have to CGI the mask for whatever reason at some point, and that looks terrible. And it's like, how did you not make 2 or 3 of the same mask, make sure they looked exactly the same, one, and then, but secondly, just have a more compelling mask. It's almost way too goofy. Like you think of, especially on the back of Scream, we've had this amazing look of Ghostface, and we go back to this franchise, and then we make it kind of a bit of a joke. It feels like it's like a parody movie with that mask.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you guys might be able to correct this. I believe I read there's 4 different masks
Yeah.
that they use, not including the CGI, and it's because they sort of started seeing the rushes, and mine was like, I don't quite like the look of that. Let's tweak it. So they purposely got a different look of the mask after they already had shots of the mask on camera. And the CGI, no one seems to be able to explain why that happened. I think like 2 shots didn't match because they changed the mask, but they'd already shot the reverse, or
Okay.
so they had to like CGI, but CGI was in its infancy, so they still couldn't get it right. What I don't understand is, in the midst of all his masks, the decision to show his eyes
Yes,
so prominently,
Yeah.
have giant holes, and to show human eyes behind it, because every great shot of Halloween you see, there's no eyes; it's black. And it makes him so much more intimidating. Like when he gets hurt in this, he literally goes bug-eyed and just like his eyes shoot out through the mask like a cartoon character. I was like, we were so close. Why? Why did you have to do this to us? The mask does hurt. The rest of the world, though, and I didn't fully appreciate it until I rewatched it this time. This really feels to me like we are back in John Carpenter's world of Halloween, even though we're not in Haddonfield for the first time ever. We're back in John Carpenter's world, and I don't mean that to say it looks like Dean Cundy's cinematography or it feels like John Carpenter's direction. It feels, and this may make no sense outside of my head, but this feels like the 90s version of the original Halloween. It feels like the logical next step. It's not trying to feel like a 70s movie. It's not trying to feel like John Carpenter, but it feels like where this movie should be in 1998. All of the characters, all of the shots, the scenery, the style, the music, a lot of stuff going on with the score of this movie that is kind of like, what the? But they did manage to kind of piece together, it's aesthetically, I think, something that fits back to back with the original, well, I guess the original 2 films. What do you guys think? Does this feel like a Halloween movie in the way that you want it to? Does this feel like John Carpenter's Halloween to you, or am I out of my mind?
Cable, would you like to go first?
You can go if you want.
I don't know. I think I might have to contest you on that a little bit.
Okay, right.
I don't think it's all the way a departure from John Carpenter's. But yeah, to me it feels, as established before, it feels very much as though it's a Scream movie, but with the characters and world of Halloween in it. And that's not a bad thing. I just feel like there is a very noticeable difference in not necessarily the quality, but just the making of the 2 films. In terms of being a 1990s entry to the series, absolutely. And I think it does nail that aesthetic really well, and it feels very much of its time.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I definitely, it does feel, if you think about all the other sequels, it does feel closer to the John Carpenter world. But I wonder, is that because we've got Jamie Lee Curtis back and they've kind of retconned the first, well, obviously 3 doesn't really matter, but 4, 5, and 6, they've retconned that and brought Jamie Lee back. But look, it has elements, but you talked about the music. That's it. We'll come back. We'll put a pin in that and come back to the music. But I like the character. I really like the character of Laurie Strode in this one. I think just all the PTSD she's got. Obviously, we talked about Halloween 2018, which is again an extension of that again. But this one, she definitely obviously the alcohol. Going, changing name, going to hiding, having the son, but being ultra protective, like he's like the boy in the bubble. There's a lot going on there, and I like that setup, but then I do feel like there's an element of almost like they handpicked some of the best stuff from Scream. Like I know Scream was, a homage a bit to Halloween, but then this one was, again, that was almost like, we'll just do almost like a Scream movie, but it's just, we're going back to the Halloween franchise, if that makes sense.
Really? What about all the stuff at the beginning, the opening with Marion, played by the original actor who played Marion in the first film? When she comes home, like I just find all of that, the music that's playing, the way the music cuts, like opening with Sandman and then just a hard cut, the broken glass, like there's a tension there straight away that I don't feel in a lot of Halloween movies, because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand Michael Myers when they get handed the reins of a film. And even those little moments, like I can't remember Joseph Gordon-Levitt and his friend. I can't remember their characters' names. It's not something hacky like Jason or something, is it? Is it Johnny or whatever it is?
That's really bad. I don't even carry.
They feel
Tony, is it? Jimmy, Tony?
Jimmy got suspended for getting a little happy with the stick. You're right, but they feel like characters that would be the kids of the characters that grew up in the original Halloween movie that didn't die. And I find that whole opening quite good, except for the hangover they had of the two cops who were originally meant to be main characters, who were going to follow the whole film and find Michael and Laurie up in the California hills, and then they decided not to do that, and those actors just were in that one scene. Yeah, so the two detectives, we're really focused on them.
Oh yeah, that
when
goes
they're in the house. It goes nowhere because it was originally a major plot point, and they were going to be the characters all the way through that kind of brought the audience from Haddonfield to California, and they were going to kind of track everything down. And then that just went away. That scene does also feature probably, I don't dislike the line, but I think it's one of the lines that's aged the worst, where he looks around the room and goes, "Michael Myers, huh, yeah, right," and then like closes the door and the theme music starts. It's like, that was cool in '98, but it's aged really poorly, and now it looks like something out of like an SNL sketch or something. It's not.
Yeah,
but you say that, but there's a lot of correlation between that initial chase scene with Marion and Casey Becker at the start of Scream. Like the fact that she even runs out of the house and she's trying to get the attention, and the police are like literally, she's almost crying for help.
Oh yeah, that is.
There's a lot of like even just little things like that. I sort of think, well, I mean, Scream came. Yeah, it's not like Scream's completely original either. I know, but it does feel like it's like, oh well, what worked in the last couple of years? Well, Scream worked. Let's piggyback on that a bit. Like,
is there an element in there potentially, and maybe I'm being far too generous, but is there an element of like Scream really pays homage to Halloween?
100%.
Is there perhaps an element of this? I mean, I know Kevin Williamson wrote it, but like of Steve Miner looking at me like, and now we'll pay that back, that respect back with an opening kill that kind of, and it's like, there's danger that it becomes a snake eating the tail situation, but it's also like everyone just high-fiving me like, how freaking good are horror movies? Yeah, boy, I saw what you did there. Woo! And we're all having a good time. Again, like I could be higher on this film than is earned, but I like that opening. I hate the titles. Oh, I hate the titles.
Oh, I'm glad. I can't believe
it's
it's taken this long for you to bring it up.
Oh my God, did they not have an extra $20 to just throw into the fucking title department? Like, I've seen better titles on like a Young and the Restless episode. It's so bad.
Yeah, but I'm not going to defend it, but I think at that time, we were very much in the era of what's up on the neon board above the ticket booth, and they love their T2s, and they love their AVPs and all that. I think 100% they went for the H20 to sort of, just be the nice, cool abbreviation for this film.
I'm not talking about the name of the movie. I'm talking about the actual credits that appear on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
No, the title of the movie is great. No, I love it. Great. H2O. Fantastic. Makes no friggin' sense. Who gives a goddamn?
Well, actually, it's funny you say that, because the title sequence we sort of see around the room and pan into some articles about Michael over the journey and stuff like that. Why has Marion even got like a shrine to this?
Well, no, it's Loomis, because it's his office, because she was looking after him and then he died.
Yeah, okay.
So she doesn't have it. It's Loomis continuing his insanity until his death.
Okay. How did I? Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway. Yeah, but then why is there a stupid photo of him then like that? Like that photo is just, it's like, oh, look, where's a publicity shot from Halloween? Let's put that in a big thing.
I mean, that is very much them going, well, he's dead, so we can't get him in.
Yeah,
Let's just get an old photo.
It's kind of like you almost need that's where you use your CGI. You go, let's make a photo of Loomis smiling in a pose with Marion before he's died or something, because that would make more sense than, let's cut to a photo of him and then have a little bit of a music interlude that lets us know who that is.
Yeah,
But
I would like to, from the moment that cop says that line and closes the door until like they show the last credit, I would like to just edit that out and just him go, Michael Myers, yeah, right. And then and then just black screen, it just says Halloween H20, and then we just go back into the movie and we cut that, moving the camera around all the old articles, which I get, this, like I said, this was my introduction to Halloween movies. So for people who had never watched it, for adults who watched the first one and then just skipped 20 years of whatever came between, I understand the theory of it. I think the execution is lacking. Just
it feels like it's built it up as an event rather than like the next chapter, which isn't a bad thing, but it's more like Michael Myers, yeah, right, and then bang, oh yeah, we're back 20 years later, welcome to the world again.
Yes, and it's nice. This movie to me has always felt like a warm blanket of a film. You know what I mean? Like you put it on and I'm just like, no, everything's going to be okay. And it doesn't have to be the fanciest thing in the world. I was watching so even in all those annoying little things, it's still fun to pick apart the little things because I'm like, nah, but overall, it's what are you going to do? We get to the school, and I think that is where I think that the two roads diverge on how people generally feel about H2O. Because, like I said, at the time, taking out 3, this is the first time we're out of Haddonfield for a Halloween movie. We've got Jamie Lee Curtis back, but she's not Laurie Strode. At least, not in the way that we know her, and we're being told she's not Laurie Strode. So there's a bit of misdirect there. There's a son in there now. There's a school of children. We're kind of tossed around a little bit for the first like 10 minutes worth of school, which I love, but I do know a lot of people once we hit the school like, oh well, fuck this isn't a Halloween movie anymore. And is that sort of where you are with it, Cable? Because it sounds like you're a little dirty on the setting.
Oh no, I'm not dirty on the setting at all. No, I liked it. I did. Again, it did feel a little bit like, I know it's more of a private school campus. Obviously, they've got a security guard, LL Cool J.
Shout out LL Cool J,
who is a writer or want to be writer. I think he writes. I think
he wants to write erotica.
Well, I think he wrote 50 Shades of Grey in the end, but it is a different setting, but it is funny. Again, it does feel very Scream. Like it feels a bit like, Scream 2, they're on a campus, and then, but it's also in the hills, sort of California-ish. So it's kind of like a bit like Scream up in the northern California hillside. But I have no issue with the location. I think it adds definitely to some really good chase scenes and some interesting ideas and kills and stuff like that. I think definitely allows for that for sure. But I was going to say the thing that got me excited that I didn't know was going to happen, being a massive fan of Psycho, that we actually get to see Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, who played Marion Crane in Psycho, is in this film as Norma, which is kind of cool. So there's a little
Janet Leigh playing Norma as like a nod to Norman Bates, and she also is driving the car that she drives in Psycho down to the license plate.
Yes,
which is all just fantastic stuff. And I love their little interactions. I thought that was brilliant. It's the only time they've been in a movie together except for John Carpenter's The Fog. Yeah. Like it's just beautiful seeing stuff like that. That tells me as an audience member I'm in the hands of someone who gives a shit, Yeah. Like let's pay a little homage. It's also like it's a film that's got in its surroundings, some bona fides going on with horror. Like Steve Miner, we talked about Friday the 13th Part 1. I think he was a second unit director. Friday the 13th Part 2, he's the big guy. He also did Warlock. He did like Placid. He did House. Like he's a man who's hung around the genre a bit. But outside of that, I mean, not to toot our own horn, friend of the show, Patrick Lussier, edited this film, famous for being Wes Craven's go-to editor for the majority of Wes Craven's film career. Marco Beltrami of Scream fame did and didn't do the score.
That's all a bit. Yeah, it
sounds the weeds of that a little bit. But it's a film that really, it seems to understand the elements of what you want for a really good horror movie. And of course, Kevin Williamson brought in to write the film, even though he didn't officially write the film because they wouldn't let him have a credit. Which is a strange thing, and I don't fully understand the logistics of that.
Yeah, what's funny? For a long time, So I believe still Kevin did write at least the original script, and other people have come in and maybe fine tuned it, or vice versa.
Other way.
But he,
Otherwise,
hasn't taken the credit, or was, like you said, there's maybe a reason why he wasn't given credit. He got executive producer, but yeah, for a long time, it wasn't until I was really paying attention the other night, rewatching, that he didn't get a writing credit. And for the longest time, I always thought, no, yeah, Kevin Williamson, he was brought on to Halloween because they know he loves Halloween. He was writing it. Again, maybe one of those urban legends that, it's kind of funny that.
well, look, obviously I'm not an insider expert, but from everything that I've been able to research, script was written, went through revision, people knew it needed a punch. Kevin Williamson was brought in. He did his thing and punched it all up, and actually wound up rewriting the majority of the script to the point where he was like, "Hey, this isn't a punch up. This is a rewrite. I want a credit." And the what are they called? WAG, the ride.
Screenwriters Guild. Oh,
Screenwriters Guild. Screenwriters Guild didn't approve it. Said, actually, no, you've made punch ups on this, but you didn't actually rewrite it, despite the fact that I think like word per word he kind of did. And so he went and had a chat with the big wigs, and agreement was made. You get the EP credit because you have facilitated the creation of this film. And that's how he kind of wound up with what he got. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on, and something I didn't realize until just recently, but for the longest time, Jamie Lee Curtis was all in on this film, and then quite recently has kind of like started to poo-poo it a little bit in interviews, saying that it fell apart, wasn't there. I mean, do you guys feel, big picture as a movie, start to finish, does this film work? Does this hold together for you guys?
Christian?
I don't know. It's a loaded question. I don't think that it's like offensively bad, and I don't think that first-time viewers will be put off from the series from watching it. In terms of it like contributing anything worthwhile to the series, I think it's a great watch. It's fun. It's a bit of a splash of Scream and a big collaboration from all of these different horror creatives, like we've just discussed. And I think that there is a lot of merit to the movie, and I don't know. I don't think it's really tarnished the reputation of the series. And I mean, like, I understand why Jamie Lee might have fallen out of favor with it, but I don't understand it getting hate. I don't think it's deserving of that.
It feels like revisionist history to me, to be honest. It feels like everyone now that we have, the Rob Zombie remakes, and then now we've got David Gordon Green's reboots of the timeline. People have kind of, I don't know, just decided it's old, and it kind of sticks out a bit like a sore thumb now because we do have these other timelines. So they're just like, nah, H20. Oh, that's the 90s one. Boo, boo, boo. Or maybe they're just getting it mixed up with Resurrection.
I was sort of wondering that. I do think because it was retconning a couple of the other movies out, I think maybe that's why.
I have a question about this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Does it actually do anything that makes 4, 5, and 6 not exist? Because I know, does it really? What does it do specifically that means 4, 5, and 6 don't exist?
Well, because Jamie Lee, Laurie Strode's dead in 4.
But she talks about she faked her death.
Oh yeah, true.
Well, but then there's also Jamie. Yeah. Jamie and her psychic connection to Michael,
who also dies and would be dead by the time this movie came around.
From what I remember reading or hearing at one point, the initial script was supposed to not at least retcon. It was supposed to be continuation after 6. So everything that existed previously was true and correct. And like you said, like obviously she's going to have to fake her own death for her to be alive, but they were going to continue on. Like Jamie was her daughter, all that stuff. And then at some point in the script rewrites, whether it was Kevin or somebody else, there's like, we've got to, maybe fine tune this backstory and history. So from what I take from this film or how I look at it, I feel like they acknowledge the first 2 films and that's it.
I think they directly acknowledge the only way that they actually bother acknowledging 2 is by keeping in that their brother and sister. But they don't do anything else to acknowledge that one. But I feel like because I watched it really close this time, I don't think they do anything that outright destroys 4, 5, and
Well,
6 existing.
well, that's true too. They don't, and it comes back to the scene that you don't like, the sort of credit scene where we sort of see flashes of stuff. Now, there's a couple of things we do see. We see the scissors that Jamie has that she holds above her head after she stabbed her mum in number 4.
Mm-hmm.
There's a screen, like there's a shot, like I guess what do you call crime scene photo of those scissors that we do see. So that's kind of acknowledging that possibly did happen, or it could be something else. And then we actually do see photos of other victims that clearly were not victims from the movies we've seen. So there's an element of Loomis and or Marion believe that Michael may have committed more murders that he hasn't been attributed to, and these are possible other victims that haven't been identified or linked to Michael previously, or that we had seen in a film. So there's that. But yeah, look, you said it is a bit foggy. There's no, I guess, definitive answer, but they have the brother and sister thing, and they do talk about his body was never found or something like that, or they assumed he was Ash. But I think the way that they talk that he hasn't been around for 20 years kind of makes me think that the Jamie Lloyd stuff can't really have happened, if that makes sense.
Oh, look, absolutely. Yeah. I'm willing to buy it all, but I also I like the idea that there is a potential that you can keep this as continuity and it doesn't destroy anything. Because how would she know? Like, if she's made so much effort to disappear from this world, to move away.
Yeah.
You know, this is pre-Twitter. It's not like every time Michael Myers kills someone, someone's like, "Oh fuck, he's done it again." Hashtag the shape's back. Like it's. She's
didn't he get arrested in one of the movies? I feel like he got arrested, and then the man in that hat busted him out.
That's 4. Is it
5?
No,
5.
Yeah,
that's 5.
End of
No,
5,
5.
he's in jail, and then the man in the hat shows up, which is weirdly there's a man in a hat and a trench coat in Jason Goes to Hell as well. I don't know what the hell is going on with men in hats and trench coats. Yeah, that was a whole other kettle of fish that really messed us up here for a bit on Sequels Suck. When you watch what we're talking about, go back to the episodes where we talk about Halloween 5 and Halloween 6, and you will genuinely hear 3 grown men descend into utter insanity over the course of I think we even recorded those 2 episodes back to back. So it was like 4 hours of us just like, but what is going? And we just, by the end, we were broken men. It was really something I think you can appreciate, Christian, after watching your video essay as a fan of the Halloween series who goes down rabbit holes.
Oh, very much so.
A big question I have for you guys, and this is one of the biggest ones I have for the movie. What the fuck is going on with Michelle Williams' eyebrows in this movie?
I mean, you're the fan. I've actually...
They have their own storyline. That's what's going on.
I'll be honest. I mean, I get why some boys or women or anyone, for that matter, like
don't you dare.
But I was no. I was more of, when it comes to Dawson's Creek, I was a bit more of a Katie Holmes kind of guy. So it's like nothing against Michelle Williams, but it was never really on my radar. So when she was in this, I'm like, yeah, cool. I wasn't rushing out because she was in this film, if that makes sense.
This could be the last episode we ever recorded this show. How dare you? My goodness. What do you think of her eyebrows, Christian? Were they distracting for you? They really distracted the shit out of me this time when I watched it.
I'll be honest.
Did you?
No, I didn't really notice. And now I'm looking at the poster and I kind of can't look away. But it didn't distract me at the time, so no comment.
You're a better man than I. There's a couple of threads I want to pull out, which I think could be a bit dangerous because it could damage something I love. But okay, so let's assume that the idea that 1 and 2 happened, nothing else happened. Michael's back 20 years later. So Michael, we learn at the start of the movie, knows where Loomis lived.
Yeah,
his arch nemesis, Michael Loomis. Why did it take him so long to get there?
I feel like that's a stretch as well. Like, I feel like And it's not like he's in Haddonfield either. He's in another part of the world that's similar to Haddonfield,
I
I
think it's
believe.
still Illinois, but not
Yeah,
the same
so
town.
it's
Am I out
maybe
of my
the next
mind?
suburb across. But he's obviously smart enough to ransack the place and get more information on Laurie, and then he knows roughly where to go. Which part of that trip kind of annoys me a little bit, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I think that's yeah.
There's a couple of key things that happen in that early scene with Michael going to Loomis's house, with ransacking the place, with kind of knowing where to go, and then his travel from where he is to where Laurie is. One of the things being that no one, including Loomis, knew where Laurie was. So there's nothing in Loomis's office that would give away her location, presumably, unless she was secretly. Did I miss something where she's secretly been corresponding with Loomis? From what I can tell, everyone thinks that she's dead and gone, including Loomis.
Yeah, I feel like that's something they never really explained. Like it's almost like, don't worry, no one will ask questions, but we do. We think about it and you go, hang on, that makes zero sense.
So what made me think of this, and it's something you actually brought up in your essay, Christian, about the way that Michael Myers is treated and the way he gets treated almost as a different character from film to film sometimes. You referenced a lot the David Gordon Green trilogy about how the fact he almost seems to be a different character from one movie to the next. If we're imagining the world where 1 and 2 happen and then we go to H2O, does this feel like a completely different Michael to you? This behavior?
Yes, and I think that is a symptom of a bit of a bigger, I'm not going to say problem, but for the sake of us talking about how this film moves, I do think it is a symptom of a problem that was established in Halloween 2. And it's simply that it's hard to make a direct sequel to a movie like Halloween, where it is still following this escaped asylum inmate, because the whole idea behind Michael is that he could be anyone, and he doesn't have an objective. He has a bit of an alluring fascination with Laurie after she turns up at the Myers home at the start of the first movie. And then from that point onwards, he stalks her and wants to hunt her. And it's as simple as that. But then to have them be brother and sister, it sort of pulls him out of the realm of him just being anyone. And so by the time we get to H2O and he's assumably maybe on foot made his way to Loomis's new house somehow, and he's ransacked the place, and he has this new objective to hunt down Laurie, who maybe he thought that she was dead or whatever. It feels to me like a great departure from the character. And again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different.
Well, he's almost a bit, at least at the beginning of it, he's almost a bit like Detective Myers. Like he's doing the legwork. He's figuring out the clues.
Yeah.
He's also, I mean, he's shit Detective Myers, because where the fuck has he been for 20 years?
Well, see, this is the other thing they don't explain, but I believe, again, so I can't remember whether I heard on the commentary or a YouTube video. I think somewhere, again, in that opening montage, there's a quick snippet of how he escaped, or something about how he escaped. And
what is he doing?
But I'm presuming he's escaped recently. Like, that makes the most sense, because like you said, what was he sitting and waiting for 20 years, just walking around trying to find Loomis to find.
Wait, so are you saying that this film's contention is that he was recaptured at the end of 2 and had been locked up for?
Well, then that makes it, that makes zero sense either, because well, at least from Laurie's point of view, she believes he could turn up.
She would know if he was in jail.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the Stu Marker thing. If he was alive and he was in jail, Sydney would know about it, and so would Gail. So that argument is so stupid. But anyway,
and I think that's why I kind of want 4, 5, and 6 to exist in the H2O timeline, because if they don't, it's absolutely insane that Michael Myers has just been out there for 20 years. Like, has he had a job? Did he get in a family and live under an assumed name? And just like, how's he eating? You can't live off dogs for 20 years. Like he must have
Well,
been
do we
eating
know
and
this?
living somewhere,
Yeah.
and like he must have somehow been getting an income. He obviously hasn't just been going from town to town on a murder spree, because they would have referenced that at some point and been like, oh, this guy, they never caught him. He just keeps going to small little
Yeah.
Midwest towns and murdering all the kids and then leaving, which would be cool because like that's literally the boogeyman. But instead,
Yeah.
it's like, no. So for one night, he was in Haddonfield in 1978. And then he got blown up. He didn't get blown up.
We never found
He
the
just
body.
walked into the woods and stared at a tree for 20 years and then was like, actually, I'm going to go kill that chick again. And then walked out and immediately knew where Loomis lived and got no information about where Jamie Lee Curtis's character lives. And
That's
then
what
just
puzzles me.
drives
If he's
to
a good enough
California.
detective to know where Loomis is, how does he not know anything about Laurie?
I mean, but I guess Loomis is like has the least amount of self-preservation of any character in any film ever, I think. In every movie, he's just like, he's gone to the house. And then he goes to the house by himself in the dark. Like in the first movie, the sheriff just walks straight up behind him and is like, ugh, and like touches him on the shoulder and scares the shit out of him. And he's like, don't do that. It's like, well, if someone can do that and you are at Michael Myers' house waiting for Michael Myers, you're going to get stabbed to death. And then the next one, he's like, I don't care. And then he like blows himself up. And then in the fourth one, he keeps walking to danger. Is it four? I think it's 5, where he just tries to flat out reason with Michael.
Yes.
After saying like, there's no reasoning with him. He's as a character, he's not going to try and hide his identity. He's probably publishing his address. So for Michael to find Loomis in H2O is so easy. The only thing that works for me and this is, the movie does nothing for this, I had to get there myself, is he goes to Loomis's house after Loomis passes away. So the only thing I can think is that from their interaction at the end of 2, when he gets blown up and has to scamper away and take 20 years to recover, is he's actually scared of Loomis. I think Myers in H2O, Loomis is the only human living thing that actually gives him pause because he's the only human living thing that pushed back and won twice. So I think he probably feels like Loomis has spent so long getting inside his head, he can't get him. Loomis is kind of Michael Myers' boogeyman in a way. So he waits for Loomis to pass away of natural causes. And then he's like, now's my time to shine. I'm going to go steal your shit. And then he breaks into his house. And if you keep that in mind, that makes this Michael Myers one of my favorite interpretations of Michael Myers. Because
he reads the newspaper and he saw the obituary, or
yeah, that's it. He's every day. He's just like, today's the day.
down the copy.
All the people at the coffee shop are like, every day this guy comes in, buys the paper, goes straight to the obituaries, gets so angry and leaves. He doesn't even drink his coffee. No, he becomes my favorite, or one of my favorite interpretations of Michael Myers, because he retains all of his like just pure evil boogeyman stuff that the Carpenter sets up. Yes, he has the load of, they're brother and sister. It's kind of not important in this movie at all that they're brother and sister. It just feels like it's a hangover they had to deal with.
Yeah.
There's no point or story beyond Laurie's like, my brother tried to kill everyone. And like Josh Hartnett gets that line where he's like, we have a serial killer in the family, which he delivers perfectly. It's great. But it means that this Michael Myers is the mindless killing machine who's constantly on the hunt. But he has his own mindless killing machine, his own version of a mindless killing machine that he's up against, which is Loomis. And he has to wait for that, I guess, that enemy to disappear before he can continue on his rampage killing spree, which as soon as Loomis is out the way, he absolutely does. Now, again, that's me. I got there on my own.
With one small exception. The family with the little girl called Casey at the public toilets in the middle of nowhere to steal the car. He does not kill them. And I'm not actually having a go at them, because sometimes when you see young kids, like, you don't need to kill a young kid. But it's kind of weird. I feel like that's a bit over the top, because he wants the car and it's like he's almost like there and waiting, hopefully some victims. But I feel like most movies, Michael Myers, it doesn't matter. He kills you and he takes your car keys. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of victims that have sort of not been touched, but I did feel like you're watching that. I'm like, that feels un-Michael. That's like smart Michael. Like, I just want the car. I'm taking the car. Mind you, she parks a mile from that bloody toilet. I don't know why. I think clearly that's for a visual.
Trying to teach her daughter a lesson. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's
you got to
like,
learn how to hold your water, child.
Yeah,
So I'm going to make you
so-
run.
But I
in the
mean,
car.
because I do actually love that scene. I think the tension in that scene is really good. The kid is called Casey, which is another nod back to Scream. And there's a couple of really good like jump scares in that, and it would be truly frightening because have you been to a public toilet like that before?
I mean,
Absolutely frightening. But yeah, I did think to myself like it was almost like he wasn't the mindless killing machine in that moment. He decided there was bigger fish to fry, so it was like I'll just go my way. I just want the car.
but also like Tommy Doyle in the original. Like he
Yeah.
runs straight into Tommy Doyle and just kind of
And that's
stands.
true. That's true.
So there is,
yes.
I think there is a thing where he sees little kids. It's almost like that regression point for him where he's like, I remember when I was a little kid, fucking stabbed my sister to death. But yeah, I remember those days. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what, you know, who I think watched that scene and felt the same way as you is David Gordon Green, which is why we get that fucking scene in Halloween 2018
Yes.
where he so savagely murders two people in a public toilet.
Yeah, because they
It's
do a
like-
podcast.
Like he watched H2O, I was like, one day I'm gonna fucking fix this.
Well, I kind of feel like leaving the kid would have been okay. Like, I just feel like shouldn't you kill the mum for the keys? I don't know. Anyway, that's
I mean, that spirals you off into like another, sequel a few years later where that kid is now growing up the trauma of Michael Myers killing her mum.
yeah.
That'd be, leave the doors open, guys. Leave the doors open. What are we doing here? What the hell is that car she's driving though?
Yeah, that's weird.
It's like she's driving the Addams family's car because they're like, this would be cool for Michael to drive around, so we'll make the mum drive this fucking
Yeah,
machine.
I actually looked for a bit of a reference. I couldn't find it. It was a weird choice because, like you said, like obviously Norma is driving a car very reminiscent or similar type car that she had in Psycho. So
It's
there's
the
a
exact
reference.
same car. It's the exact same
Yeah.
make and model.
Okay, and then even the car that Michael drives to that point, I believe, isn't that close? I'm pretty sure that's similar to one of the cars he drives in 4, maybe? Is it 4 or 5? I can't remember. I've lost track. But similar type, that kind of era car, 80s. And then, yeah, obviously then, yeah, she's got this, like, no disrespect. You don't want to be sexist or assume what people should drive, but mother and daughter in a big sort of old, almost like Chevy truck seems really weird. Weird
How
choice.
many miles per gallon do you think that Chevy truck gets? What do you reckon? What do you reckon is his max distance? Because I just looked it up. It's 2,084 miles from Illinois to California. It's a 30-hour drive. He's got to fuel up at least like 4 times to be in that same car when he gets to California. What? Show me that scene. What's happening?
Yeah.
Is he wearing the mask when he goes in? Is he taking the mask off and just pretending to be a normal guy?
No.
Is
he
he
just-
paying them? I want to know that.
Is he fueling up and then just driving off and they'll be like, or is he walking in and they go, what's with the mask? And then he brutally murders them and then leaves.
Well, I was thinking that. I think if he's stopping at a smaller servo where it's like almost like a self-service, little family-run business, and he's killing that person.
What if there's no little one? What if he's driving along and he's just like,
Yeah,
oh, well, the only
well-
thing around is a shell with like 40 people in there. What am I
Yeah.
going to do?
Don't know.
This
These are
threat-
the things we don't know, and they just don't explain on purpose.
And you know what? You've hit something right on the head. And this is something I think you'll appreciate as well, Chris, about this movie. These are things they don't explain. And for all the nitpicking and they're like, what's he doing? Did he have a job? The fact that it's been 20 years since the last one and they don't even begin to give a fuck about explaining is one of the smartest things this movie does. Like I talk about this with so many movies we talk about and so many sequels, but John Carpenter nailed it when he said about Michael Myers specifically, but about monsters in general. The worst thing you can do about a monster is explain it. As soon as you explain the monster, it's not scary. Michael Myers works at his best in the original Halloween when, like you talked about before, Christian, he's just an entity. He's the shape. He's a killing machine. And in H2O, we're kind of back to that. We get no explanation. He's just there and he's killing. And it honestly doesn't matter if you've seen any other Halloween movie in your life. I hadn't when I saw it. And that guy, like goofy mask and all, was still like, this is a bit fucking scary. Like this guy's just showing up and killing people. There is no reveal where the mask comes off and it's Sydney's boyfriend. And he's like, yeah, well, how's this? Your mum fucked my dad, or your dad fucked my mum and ruined my life. And that's why I killed your mum. Like, no, none of that. No, for 20 years he's been working on his anger issues and then he decided, fuck it, I'm going to kill her anyway. Like, it's literally just a guy shows up at a place and starts killing people, and there is absolutely no reason why. And I love that they just never explain it. Do you guys like that, or do you wish there was something they gave us to bring the two worlds together?
I like that it doesn't say anything. Like you said, the sort of allure of the character lives on him not having anything to do except kill. And so to remove all of those like nitpicky questions like, oh, well, how did he get here? What was he doing? How did he feel about this? You're only getting exactly what the director wants you to think and feel about him. And I think it works very well for Michael.
Yeah, I think this might be Steve Miner's best film, personally. I think he nails all the things that you want from Michael Myers, but he also manages to convey all the things that he wants from Michael Myers in just shooting around that. And I like, the Friday 13th movies. I love Lake Placid. I think they're great. But in terms of how to orchestrate this character at such an awkward time, I don't think enough credit is given to everyone who made this movie around what they had to deal with. Because these days it's normal. These days we get, it's Halloween. Yeah, oh, cool. No, it's Halloween 2018. They're ignoring everything except the first one. And people go, oh, yeah, for sure. Or, Exorcist. Oh, it's Exorcist Believer. Yeah. It's a direct sequel to the first Exorcist. And everyone goes, oh, yeah, no worries. Whatever. Like, we're so accustomed to that as an audience now. I don't think anyone had done this before H2O, where they're like, actually, you know what? We recognize a couple of those sequels. Well, not so good. So, hey, let's just all collectively agree they didn't exist. Cool. And the audience went, oh, yeah, thank you. We've been asking you to do that for years. Like, the only other option was a reboot where you go back to day dot and you have to start the whole thing all over again. Like with superhero movies, no one liked Batman and Robin. It was like, all right, we got to wait a bit and then we'll do Batman Begins. And none of that ever happened. That world's dead. I can't, correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anyone else who would just flat out said we're ignoring a bunch of the sequels, but not all of the sequels?
Ooh.
At that point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
no, not off the top of my head. I think it would be one of the first to kind of start doing the retcon thing.
So is this movie responsible for the good or the worst of where we are with sequels and horror movies in 2024?
I don't know, because like you said, I think it's still quite ambiguous whether they're retconning stuff. I think definitively we know the first and second movie happened in this universe, 100%. I do feel like they wanted to continue the whole storyline, but it wasn't important to, have that whole storyline and kind of, have the exposition to say, oh, well, Jamie Lloyd was my other daughter and this, and this. Like, they didn't need to go into those depths. So I guess we won't 100% know until, like, maybe Kevin comes out or Steve Miner or whatever. Like, I definitely think... I think it's somewhat of a retcon. I think they've decided to ignore 4, 5, and 6. But like you said, Angus, like it makes more sense that if they did exist, that's where he's been. That's where he's been around and he's done this and that. And yeah, I don't know. It's but yeah, I do think they're kind of the first franchise to sort of look at maybe dismissing previous entries and moving forward in a different direction.
I mean, the only other thing, like, it didn't dismiss anything at all, but the only movie I can think of is just like, don't worry about that, is like Highlander 2, when Ramirez is just alive again. And they're like, hey, doesn't cutting off a Highlander's head kill them forever? He's like, no, I'm all right, don't worry about that. They wanted me back for the sequel. Things like that had happened where they're like, don't worry about that one bit of the last movie that prevents this from happening.
Oh, I mean,
in terms of just being like, 4 movies gone, forget them. Don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, like even I know what you did last summer kind of had that jump scare at the end, but you kind of knew, oh, if they come back for a sequel, that's never going to happen. That's going to be now a dream sequence or whatever. So,
No, because his name is Will Benson. Don't you get it? Don't you get it, Cable?
yes, yes, yes,
Gosh.
yes.
Golly gosh. You're right. They don't explain any of that. They don't give us any kind of links. They don't worry about explaining all that. And you know what we get as a result of that? A beautiful, gorgeous 89-minute film. This movie is like in and out.
I was going to say that's the one thing I think benefits of movies. They don't get it dragged down, which it's
yes.
pretty cracking pace. It doesn't. I don't feel like I never really get bored. And even those scenes that are a little bit drawn out to give us that exposition, like even just the cool little bit where they go out for a drink and she's relaxing with his name, Alan Arkin's character's name is escaping me, but they're in the bar and then he goes to the toilet. He goes, I'm here. I'll listen. I can listen. He goes to the bar and she goes to the guy, give me another Chardonnay. And he's like, you've already got one. And it's about sculling it and not letting him know that she's had 2 glasses and stuff like that. I think they're nice little touches. But again, the movie just goes at a really cracking pace that it's like, like you said, in and out.
It's brilliant. And all the characters are pretty well fleshed out for such a short film. Like I feel like I know everything I need to know about LL Cool J. I feel like I know most. I think his name is Will Benson. Is that his name?
No,
it's
not.
actually Will Benson.
No, it's not. Is it?
Will Brennan. It's Will Brennan. But I feel like I know it like at the Alan Arkin.
Which is really weird because Will Brennan sounds like a really white name.
No, Will Brennan is Alan Arkin. It is a really white
name. Yeah, very white name. Okay.
So. No, LL Cool J's name is Ronnie.
Oh, Ronnie.
That's all you get.
Yeah.
But all the characters, even the kids, like we haven't really talked about them yet, but the 4 kids who are kind of the center of the peril, I suppose, of the majority of this movie, they're really well fleshed out. I mean, shout out to Adam Hyde Bird, who I only knew from Hook, I think. But shout out to him for like showing a generation of nerds that you can still get the hot chick, because that couple, like...
Oh, no, so I knew him from Jumanji. Doesn't he play...
Oh, is it Jumanji?
Yeah,
sorry,
okay.
Am I getting mixed up with the Jumanji kid?
I can't not see him as Jumanji with a tail.
Did you guys find this when you watched it? Did you guys look at this couple and go, how?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's like, there's something going on. Is she blind?
I mean, did you buy it, Christian? Were you on board with this coupling?
Look, I'm gonna be so real with you. Dating my partner has like humbled me. I don't know how I was able to meet their standards, and so now when I see that in a movie, I'm like, yep, sure, cool, go ahead, do it.
It's true.
I mean, I love it because I'm like, oh, good, we can all get there. But I do remember it just in the 90s that didn't happen. Like all of the guys who got the hot chick looked like Josh Hartnett. So as soon as you see someone's like, who's this big nose nerd? What's happening? You are my friend. I love you. You are my cipher. And then when he dies, I'm like, God damn, of course you fucking die. Of course you die brutally. Of course you're the first to go. You son of a bitch. You gave me false hope. Cool deaths in this movie.
Yeah.
I like these deaths. And definitely ratcheting up the brutality. Like Sarah, when she gets her leg caught in that dumb way.
Yes. Yeah.
Like does that one make your skin crawl, guys? That one really gets
yeah.
I mean, I have a bit of a body horror thing. Anytime like something like, I don't know, slashes, stabbing, gutting, all that, I'm like, whatever. But like when there's some kind of like
broken bone,
dismemberment or some kind of like permanent dysmorphia, I don't know. It just. Yeah.
But I think well, I can't speak for you, but I know what you're sort of saying. I do think there's an element of, if someone's almost permanently injured where they can't run, they're pretty much dead. So you like, doesn't matter how much they try and crawl and fight, they're really at a massive disadvantage that you're like, they're going to struggle here. And you kind of, the writing's on the wall.
And we get like more brutal, but also kind of I felt a bit of an homage to like playful Michael when he dresses up as Ghost Bob in the original. Only this is a far more fucked up version where he kind of mounts Sarah as a light ornament. Yeah. Like when they find her, she's hanging with like the light bulb in her or something. And it's almost he's like, oh, look at the pretty picture I made. Don't you like it? Like I don't know. I feel like it taps into that. He's still kind of a kid in the most fucked up way. But like when he puts the sheet on as Bob in the original, it's like, oh yeah, like he's kind of in a permanent infancy in a way,
Yeah.
and he doesn't really know what to do in certain
Yeah,
situations.
it's like you got the mental age of a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But in this one, yeah, when he kind of strings her up like that, I'm like, oh, that's him like having some fun.
Yeah.
He's he made some art. Put it in the rec room. I think correct me if my count's wrong, you guys might do this, but I think this one only has six deaths in the whole film, including the opening pre-credit scene where that's 3 that go.
Yep.
And then there's only 3 once we get to the campus. Is right, it's Sarah, it's Will Brennan, and it's Charlie.
Yep.
And,
Correct.
I mean, unless you count Michael, but that's it. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
How did that sit for you guys? I mean, I know you didn't watch it in 1998, Christian, but body counts were big and like especially coming off the Scream era and Scream 2 and things where it's like, you know, Carnage Candy kind of thing. It was kind of tame. Do you feel like this is like a good choice in making it a bit more of a reserved, I guess is the word, body count, as opposed to, you know, what we wound up with in the later years of the Rob Zombies and the Halloween David Gordon Green era, where it's just like you lose count of how many friggin' people are dying in these movies?
I don't know. I think we've been again, because I didn't grow up with this movie, so I feel like at least with my exposure to horror, I've been very spoiled with just high body count movies. But I never found that distracting. I think I was just too into the movie to be like, oh sweet, that guy's going and then she's going, and it never occurred to me that, oh, there's only 6 people who die in this whole movie.
Yeah. And I think it's a neat trick because, you know, we started a school filled with kids and then they're just
We
like,
got rid of all the kids.
fuck all those kids up. That is probably the most unrealistic scene for me, when she tells John he can go on the excursion and then he's like, I'm not going. And then she's on the phone when the buses are leaving to talk to a parent and she goes out. I know we don't have mobile phones yet, but I have a kid who's gone on a school excursion, like away on camp for a couple of days. I'm sure you probably have as well, Cable. Like when kids go on camp, teachers are fucking stressed. Like they quadruple check the notice board of who's coming, and they quadruple check the head numbers they have on the bus. If the insane principal's kid has been added to that list, you are going to check every 15 minutes for the entire journey as to whether or not he's sitting next to you. There's no way that she hasn't gone and told all the teachers, okay, I've said John can come, but you have to make sure that he calls me. And you have to, like, she's not just telling John he can go, she's telling everyone. And then the teachers are just going to be like, I don't see John. I'm sure he's here. And then they just go. There's no way. That's the only bit where I was like, no, I don't believe it. Is it just me? That's probably just me.
Yeah, no. I totally agree. I think that's another like convenient plot point that doesn't really hold up. Like you said, there'd be teachers that are the ones going on the trip, making sure they're checking. They go, well, 35 students, 3 bus loads. Where's the 35 children? Oh, hang on, we've done a couple of counts. It's only 34. Where's John? Yeah, I don't. Actually, you know. What do you think? So I always think sometimes, like, why do they use the same names all the time, or really common names? I don't like that his name's John, and I don't like when every time she speaks to him, she says John. Like, it makes me think of
John Connor?
Sarah Connor and John Connor.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a Terminator. I'm like, what is it? I don't know. I reckon that was a poor choice.
Charlie's girlfriend's name is Sarah, so you have 4 named kid characters in this movie, and 2 of them are John and Sarah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the one when she says to him like a couple of times when they're obviously arguing, and like, John, you don't fuck with me, blah blah blah. Like she's getting really stern, and all I can hear is Linda Hamilton saying John, if that makes sense. Like it's almost the same tone. It's like, oh, that wasn't well thought. I would have, if I saw the dailies, we're changing his name. He's not John.
You know what? The only thing that works for me is if you are in hiding, trying to never be found by someone, you'd be picking the most generic names you could. Yeah. Like try finding John Tate in America.
Yeah.
Like, good luck.
Well, that's true too. And Kerry.
So that worked for me, but you're right. I hear it too when she calls it. the way she says it too, like she adds an extra O in there sometimes, the same way that like Linda Hamilton does when she gets a bit worked up and the accent comes through. It's fine. I also like the way that the teenagers, particularly like Molly, the Michelle Williams character, like she don't really take no shit. Like when her and John come across Michael and Michael stabs John in the leg, she just straight up fucking crowns him with a rock. Like she doesn't scream and run away. It's just like, no, kaboom. And I feel like it's a really nice shift from where we were in the original Halloweens, where, you know, as great as the original Halloween is, and as much as one of the greatest films ever made, the female characters in particular, like when they die in that movie, they die quite helplessly.
Yeah.
It's just like there's nothing, you know.
Yeah, it's good. She's not damsel in distress.
It's just you're like strangled, dead.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, you have no, even like I know Bob cops it pretty bad, but he even fights back a bit before he cops it. Like it's kind of like it was the 70s thing, and it's no shade at what is a perfect film. But in this one, it's almost like they're acknowledging, like, hey, we recognize now that both male and female characters can fight back with a little bit of chutzpah. It's not just screaming and hiding in a cupboard and lashing out in desperate hope. It's like, no, you stabbed my friend, I'm gonna crush your skull. I think that's really good. Again, maybe this is just me just getting lost in it.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely I mean 20 years after the first Halloween, I think that the audiences that are now growing up at the time with Halloween almost just sort of expect well, I mean, they know what to expect. They've seen all the conventions of these movies. They know that if he turns up, you know, he's going to stab them to death. And I feel like as an audience member, I'd be like, come on, dude. Like, while he's not looking, throw a brick at him or something. And I feel like that's a little bit rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. It really like lets us know, yeah, no, these characters have been thought through. They're not just fodder. We've actually got some stuff going on here. And I guess that's also like a byproduct of having so few teens to slash is they have the time to flesh them out and to make us care. And every time I watch it, I'm really sad when Charlie and Sarah die. Like I know enough of those characters and like those characters enough by the time they cop it that it's like, fuck, come on. And Will as well. I mean, obviously he's a lovely character and I love Adam Arkin. But you know, he's an adult and it's always less kind of affecting, I think, when adults get slashed in slashes, because it's like, I mean, you really are lucky you made it this far into the film if you're an adult in a slasher. Something that I am always fascinated with films and is one of my favorite things, and we've danced around a little bit in this episode, is the score. And I know you Christian, are a fan of Halloween scores, and in fact, it's one of the few redeeming things that you have to say about some of the latter day Halloween films. How do you feel about the scoring of this movie?
I think it's interesting. I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword where as much as I love the previous composer's work, it to me, it sort of paints this movie with a different kind of atmosphere. It's less the unsettling build-up that we've come to expect. And it's more of like this grand orchestral, like, oh, he's back. Oh no, it could be Ghostface, but it's not. It's someone else. And at times, I feel that it almost works as a disservice to the movie. But other times, I also really feel it. There's like a musical sting that happens at a point in the movie, and I forget exactly where it happens, but it's when Laurie closes the door and Michael is on the other side of the door, and they come face to face, and there's a musical sting, and I'm like, this is great. This feels like oh, yeah, this just happened. They're back. Let's up the ante. And I like it in moments like that. But yeah, it's just a different experience. I don't think it delivers the same feeling that we're used to, and I don't think that that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I think John Carpenter's score is so iconic by this point of H2O, and even more so now that he's come back for the recent ones. I feel like they probably have their hand forced a little bit, whereas if they wanted to try and get away from, I guess, the feel of the first 6 films, because I think Alan Holworth, I think, takes over from 4, and I think he does 4 and 5. I don't even know if he does 6, but he worked with Carpenter on so many films, and it's really got a consistent feel, and this one breaks away from that. And you're right, it has a different time. I guess Carpenter's is far more dread-inducing in the way that he uses, the really sparse synth stuff that he does, and the almost kind of Jaws style, like 2-note stuff for a lot of the first film. Whereas this one is
he distilled it to like a science where if you look at like I'm not very musically inclined, but like if you look at the way that John Carpenter originally scored the movie, there was like deliberate irregularities between all the different synth sings and everything. And so as you're listening to it, your brain's almost expecting a tune, it's expecting a pattern, but because there isn't one and it's very unpredictable, it makes it all the more unsettling.
yeah, and
And that's why
he's
I
a
think that he's
master.
a godsend. Oh yeah, he is perfect.
But with this one, so we well, look, I like it, and I think it deliberately eschews this idea of building dread and tension for far more of an energetic style, which is Marco Beltrami's style. But there is a lot of familiarity in it, and there is a lot of Scream style in it, because the score that Marco Beltrami is credited with putting together for H2O is majority reused scores from Scream 1, Scream 2, and Mimic. So there's not a lot of original score in this movie. The original score was done by John Ottman. The whole score was done for this film by a guy called John Ottman, and then the director's like, that's not really right. And because now we've got Kevin Williamson, we've got all of this Scream kind of mania going on. We've got people who are like, make it like the other one that's popular. Beltrami is brought in. He wrote a couple little bits and pieces, as far as I can tell, but majority of what we're hearing, in fact, there's parts, and if you watch Scream as much as Cable and I do, there are parts of this movie where they hit a sound cue, and straight away my ears perk up. I'm like, that's Scream 2. What's happening? That's when Sydney is in the car with the cops, and the pole goes to the guy's head. That's straight up Scream 2. What the hell is happening? And then I read, and I was like, oh, okay. I do highly recommend, though, for anyone who is a fan of film scores and a fan of Halloween film scores and wants to see what could be. I never say it right. Varese or Varese Sarabande, an Italian production company. They put out the score. It's called Portrait of Terror, because I guess they couldn't call it Halloween, but the track listings are like, John talks to Laurie. Laurie has a drink. Like it is the track listings for the actual film. It's just called Portrait of Terror. You can get it on Spotify or like other streaming thing. But if people like Halloween music, and I love it, I sit around and listen to the scores all the time, like some kind of a maniac. But I really recommend people check it out, because it's a really good film score, and it's good to listen to on its own. But it's also really interesting to kind of think about what H2O could have felt like, because we did have such a defined sound for 6 movies, and we certainly stepped away from this one. And honestly, I think good choice. There's even, at the end, just to let you know you're in 1998, there's even a Creed song in the credits, just to really throw in some new metal and be like, in case you guys forgot, it is 1998 and we do have to do this. So that's always a bit of fun. It has the potential to be, I guess, the forgotten stepchild of the Halloween series, now that we went another 20 years beyond H2O, basically, and then wound up with this new Halloween world that ignored H2O and all the others, and even Halloween 2, and went right back just to the original and started its own cycle. And it is kind of fun now. We talked about this a bit last time we spoke about Halloween movies, Cable, where this series has kind of become a bit of your choose your own adventure. I mean, as someone who has descended into madness thinking about these films, Christian, do you like that aspect of these films? Do you like that you can kind of choose what version of Halloween you want?
I'm never gonna say no to that, because if if any of my friends are like, hey, where do I start with the Halloween series? I've heard that there's different timelines and it's confusing. And, firstly, I apologize on their behalf. And then secondly, I'd be like, well, it's great because you just have more options. If you're someone who loves what they did with the Thorn trilogy, you go and watch that. I have a friend who adores, he lives and breathes by the Rob Zombie duology, which doesn't really do it for me, but I'm like, hey, that's your shit. Go ahead. You love that. And same with the sequels. And I understand why a lot of people my age or contemporary horror fans would love the sequels, because it feels a lot more familiar to them. And I think the idea of them, I think the idea of just being able to like retrospectively traverse between these different iterations of the story is really interesting because there's very few other. I don't know. I can't think of many other movie series where you can do that at all. I think it's a very beautiful experience.
It's certainly a unique one too. I don't think certainly no horror franchise has been able to just continuously be like, we're taking another swing at it, but we're never. I mean, apart from Rob Zombie, we're never ignoring the original, and all the fans have been like, yes, good. How do you feel about it, Cable? Like you sort of.
Well, it's funny you
came
say
up
about
with
Rob Zombie
H2O.
because the plan was supposed to be to do a third Rob Zombie film to sort of finish out a trilogy, but that never sort of eventuated, or other things happened and money and whatever. They just decided not to do it and do a David Gordon Green trilogy instead. It's interesting. I mean, it is one of those things that you can watch the original and then maybe if you don't have time, like I don't have a lot of time to sit down and do marathons these days, but just chuck on one or two of the films and you can watch a particular timeline. Like even though I was harsh on 5, I'm more partial. I don't mind 4 and 5.
They're fine.
I love
Fine to
Danielle.
watch.
I just love that Danielle Harris in those films. I think she's so good in them. And again, it's something just a bit different. But then, just off for a one-off. I love putting on Season of the Witch, and I know that's not Michael Myers, but it is what it is. I think it's great to have those options available, and said like you can put this film on and watch it as a one-off, or watch 1 and 2 and then watch this and be happy.
Yeah, and I think happy is the key. Like, there's so many different ways to be happy with the Halloween movies. We're kind of like,
You spoil it for choice, really. At the end of the day,
I
you
don't
can't. Yeah.
think Halloween fans often realize how good we have it.
Oh yeah.
Like in every film series that we love, that is like our favorite thing ever, there's almost inevitably one where they're like, I can't believe that. I wish that one never existed. And people will get so angry and be like, oh, forget that stupid movie. It's just like, some people get really carried away over things like Dewey dying in Scream 5 and just won't fucking let it
Just
go.
let it go.
No matter what, they still dream of ways to bring him back. Crazy people like that. But it's a great thing that I think that we have all these options, and it's a great thing that we kind of did it with Halloween H2O, and it was good enough that it kind of encouraged people to do it again and again and again and probably again. I mean, where does Michael Myers go from here? In this timeline we currently exist in, he dead for real this time, for real.
Yeah.
No takey backsies. No, it
Is
was
he
actually the
though?
paramedic. I mean, Michael Myers will never die, but where do you think we go next with this? There's been talk for a little bit about a TV series. I don't know if we go down that road, please. But what do you want to see from Michael next? Do we want more reboots? Do we want more sequels that connect to one but not the other films? I mean, do you want to see, Christian, do you want to see a sequel to Halloween 2018 that ignores, kills, and ends? Is that the dream?
I have a very distressing relationship with these movies, as you know. I have a bit of a cynical take, and I feel that, and I forget who it was, but whoever acquired the rights to develop the next set of Halloween movies, and I know that this isn't the case, it's a pipe dream, but I think it would be a very hilarious opportunity to hold the rights to these movies and do nothing with them to prevent other people from further ruining the series. Because if you ask me, I feel like going forward, we should return to what they tried to do with Season of the Witch and make it an anthological series of different stories. A couple years ago, more than a couple years ago, I only watched it a couple years ago, that's why I'm saying it. But we had that movie Trick or Treat, which was an anthology film, brilliant, and I thought that was fantastic, and I would love to see stuff like that, where it's these Halloween-centered stories that release once every year or every 2 years that is under the Halloween umbrella, but is in no way, shape, or form connected to the same, like, 6'3" asthmatic stabby guy that just continually comes back.
That's probably what we're going to get, honestly. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
that we're in an era of Halloween where the name is more valuable than the actual characters of the story. And so I think inevitably what we'll get, I don't know if we'll get an anthology movie. I think what we'll probably get is some kind of Haddonfield-based TV series where, you know, there's a series of horrific things that go on in the town of Haddonfield, and they inevitably bring it back to Samhain or the Druid cults or the evil of Michael Myers. I mean, I'm currently reading the novelization of the first Halloween movie for the first time, and really realizing like how in depth they started way back in the 70s with it's all about ancient evils and ancient cults and ancient things that possess the family line of Michael Myers. So there's lots of threads they've been throwing out there, officially or unofficially, for years that they can pull on. Where does this sit for you guys in the Halloween canon? Where's this movie for you?
What's the seventh film in? The sixth of Michael Myers.
Personal preference. In your personal preference, where would you place this one in the 13 Halloween movies that we have?
It's funny. I'll go back almost to the start of the podcast when you talked about that this one's almost become a bit of like the sore thumb sticking out, and we don't know why that is necessarily. But I do wonder if it's, you know, people are getting confused with Resurrection, or the fact that the success of this brought Resurrection on board, and then people are so disappointed with that it's kind of like, that's all that 90s crap now. I've moved on, and maybe, I don't know. Look, I like this movie. It's fun. It does feel definitely very Halloween. I think it's got its problems though. I think overall, plot wise, it's pretty good. The scares and the chases and that is very good. The PTSD and the fact like she feel like she's seeing Michael Myers everywhere she's going, I think that's a nice touch. I think there's a lot of good stuff, but I do think there's still the odd issue. Like the thing that, they retcon that he wasn't dead at the end of this one, or it was somebody else, it was a paramedic, but that just doesn't hold for me. Like
everything in Resurrection is dog shit, and I refuse to acknowledge its existence.
But that's the thing. They made them. They write this movie, and they potentially bring the franchise back to life, and yet they kill him off definitively. Like he gets his head taken off. He's not going to survive that. We know he's the boogeyman. He kind of survives things. But I think when you behead someone, I think that's pretty final.
Yeah.
And the fact that they did that and kind of paint themselves in the corner was pretty dumb. And going back to another thing, like I said, it's always irked me, the mask. But like you said, seeing too much of the eyes and the face is very jarring. I think that was something they didn't think out very well. And having said that, I don't think he looks old enough. I think even his hands, I think he looks way too young under that mask, which they clearly do not think about. Like, I always think he looks younger than Laurie, and it's like, that doesn't, I just can't see past that. I think that's, again, a glaring issue that I have with the movie. It's unfortunately, that's why, say if I was giving it a 10 out of 10, it's definitely coming down a few pegs, because I think they didn't nail the look. Having said that, Chris Durand, who plays Michael Myers, or is the stunt guy that does that, he was actually the stunt guy. He was Ghostface for some scenes in Scream 2. And again, I think he nails the walk when we see him, the head tilts. I think he nails the mannerisms as Michael. So I've got no issues with him personally. I just think production-wise, they clearly didn't hide enough of his face or have shadowing around the eyes, or like you said, whether it was the mask had the eye holes too big. I don't know. I just think they just didn't nail that enough. Otherwise, this would be, I wouldn't say perfect, but it'd be really up there in Halloween films, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same. I think it's perfect except for the mask, really. I mean, this is my third favorite Halloween film, I think. Like, it's the original Season of the Witch, and then this, sitting above the 2018 one. What do you feel about it? Where would you place it in the canon of 13 films, Christian?
So I'm consulting my little list here. I
had to do the same thing. I do have a list. For no one's benefit but my own, I personally decided to order how I feel about the Halloween films from start to finish.
Same. Oh yeah, you got to do it.
One must.
I currently have H2O at 6 out of 13. And I think it's
Wow.
perfectly fine. That's for me. That's good. It's like
What
it's
have you
not
got in
my
the
favorite.
5 spot? I'm curious. What pips it?
Halloween 2.
Oh, okay. That's I also
Mm.
have Halloween 2 as my 5th in the ranking, but obviously we have different feelings about where H2O comes before and after that.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a very controversial top 5. But we
Oh,
can
can you
circle
tell
back
us?
to that.
No, I'm genuinely curious about this. What's
All right.
run us through your top 5.
Just for context, the title of my list is "Be Gentle," so yeah, keep that in mind. All right, number one, 78. It's the
Of
OG.
course.
It's
Okay,
perfect.
good.
Love
I was really nervous when you said it's controversial. I was about to
it.
just delete this podcast from existence.
Number two, I've got 2018. Really
Okay.
enjoy that.
Yeah.
Capitalizes on what I like about the first one. Sort of reinforces the same messaging. Great. Number three, Halloween 4. I like this movie. I think it's really cool.
I have it as my number 6, but I'd like it. Yeah. It's a good
There
one.
you go. And at number 4, Halloween 3.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Thank
great.
you. Yes.
That's the one that I show everyone. I'm like, I think Season of the Witch is freaking awesome. And if you want a good time without having to invest in another 12 movies of the same set of characters, Halloween 3 is great. It's so much fun.
Incredible film. That's not that controversial of a list. I think that's good.
Really?
I think you cover also like a lot of the things that make Halloween movies great, and also a lot of people love. Like obviously, I mean, I'm assuming Cable that the original would be your favorite Halloween movie. Yeah, so I think like 99 people out of 100 are going to say it's John Carpenter's Halloween is the best.
I admit I don't have a list in front of me right now, and like things slide up and down, but I think Christian's list is pretty solid, close enough to what you said. I think we're probably, if we put our list together, I think most of the movies you just said would be probably our top 5s. I think pretty stock standard. I would have thought.
What's 13 out of curiosity, Christian?
Take a guess. I wonder what it could be.
It has to be Ends.
Really,
Yeah.
you put Ends below Resurrection.
I put Resurrection above the 2 Rob Zombie movies.
Ooh. I mean, oof. I mean that's for a future episode, but that's all right. Okay. Wow. Okay. Someone likes
Well, let's just say I think Christian has to be back for that episode.
Oh no, it's going to be a 2v1 for like an hour and a half.
Maybe
My goodness, that's probably the most surprising twist of this whole episode. Have we got it? Do we miss anything about H2? I mean, it's 89 minutes. I can't imagine we've missed anything about this movie.
I think this podcast is longer than 89 minutes.
Well, we're gonna have to edit the hell out of it. We broke the rule. That's the problem with short movies. It's so hard to stick to the rule that the podcast can't be longer than the movie when the movie's only 89 friggin' minutes. Well, in that case, then we should definitely wrap it up. Christian, thank you so much for joining us to chat about H2O and to dig around in the wounds of your Halloween fandom.
Thank you for having me.
Very much appreciated. People should check out, go to YouTube and check out Christian's videos. Production Journal, is that the channel? Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Production Journal on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll chuck a link in the podcast.
And you will catch a sneak peek. You won't know it's him, but you will see our very own Cable in there in full Michael Myers regalia, being a brutal, scary man. Cable, I'm so glad that we got to H2O.
Yes,
I love this movie. I'm so glad we're back on the Halloween bandwagon. It's inspiring me and terrifying me to rewatch the last few that we haven't talked about yet, because oh boy, is it just a crawl to the finish line with these ones. But until we get to those, make sure you like and subscribe if you like the show. Share, tell your friends, get on board. Tell us what we got wrong or got right. If you love H2O, good, you're correct. And if you don't love H2O, then go to bed. It's too late. Or maybe you can just comment on how beautiful my face is today. But no matter what you do, join us next week when we come back and talk some more. Because remember, not all sequels suck.
Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
Oh God. Oh. Sequel suck fans.
By definition alone, they're inferior films.
I almost remake a quick warning of
Sequels suck.
this episode is spoilers for the
Sequels suck.
over the crazy